Gas stations are meant for quick stops, but after dark, they change. The air feels heavier, the shadows stretch longer, and sometimes something is watching from just beyond the lights. These are 3 true gas station horror stories. Pull in, if you dare, but don't stay too long. Story 1. The Man at Pump 6. It was just past midnight when I pulled into a gas station off Highway 14 in rural Kansas. I'd been driving for hours, chasing caffeine and empty road, trying to make it to my motel before exhaustion caught up to me. The place looked like every other lonely gas station. Bright fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. A couple of pumps sitting in the middle of cracked pavement. A convenience store glowing in the distance, like a tired beacon. The lot was empty, except for one car parked at Pump 6. An old, rust-bitten sedan with paint peeling along the doors. Its headlights were off. No one was moving inside. I pulled up to Pump 4 and stepped out into the warm night air. The sound of crickets and the faint hum of the lights filled the silence. That's when I noticed him. A man was standing next to the sedan, tall, lean, wearing a faded work jacket and jeans. But it wasn't his clothes that caught my attention. It was the way he was standing, perfectly still, facing me, not the pump. Not his car, just me. I gave him a quick nod, the kind you give strangers in the middle of nowhere. No response. His head tilted slightly to the side, like he was studying me. I swiped my card, trying to ignore the feeling that his eyes hadn't left me. The pump clicked on, and I gripped the nozzle a little tighter than usual. Every instinct was telling me not to turn my back to him. Halfway through filling my tank, I glanced over. He hadn't moved, still staring. His face was partly hidden in shadow, but I could see the edges of a wide grin slowly forming. My stomach tightened. I forced myself to look away and focus on the pump display. Just finish, I thought. Just finish and leave. The pump clicked off. I replaced the nozzle and slid back into my car, locking the doors the second I sat down. That's when he moved. Not toward his car, not toward the store, toward me. Slow, steady steps across the pavement. I started the engine and threw it into drive. But before I could hit the gas, he was at my passenger side window. He leaned down, placing both hands on the glass. Up close, his grin was stretched too far, his teeth small and yellow under the harsh station lights, and his eyes, they were completely wrong. Too wide, too bright, unblinking. He mouthed something. I couldn't hear it over the engine and my pounding heart. So I hit the window switch, thinking maybe he needed help. As the glass dropped an inch, his voice slid in, low, raspy, deliberate. You're not supposed to be here. Every hair on my body stood on end. I slammed the window shut, stomped on the gas, and peeled out of the lot, my tires screaming against the pavement. In the rearview mirror, he was still standing there at the edge of the light, watching me drive away. Not chasing, not calling out, just watching. That same smile plastered across his face. I didn't stop driving until I hit the motel 2 towns over. And even then, I sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes, gripping the wheel, trying to convince myself I'd just run into some strange, overly friendly drifter. But the next morning, I stopped at a diner for breakfast. The waitress, an older woman with tired eyes, asked where I'd come from. I told her I'd fueled up at the gas station off Highway 14. Her face went pale, "That place closed years ago," she said. "Pump 6 doesn't even work anymore." Sometimes the danger isn't on the road. It's waiting under the flicker of a gas pump light, watching you from just a few feet away. And if that place really has been closed for years, then what exactly was standing there? But the next story proves that some things don't wait outside. Sometimes they're already inside the store. Story 2. The Woman in the Cooler Aisle. It was the summer of 2017, sometime around 2:30 in the morning. I'd just finished a late shift at the warehouse and was running on fumes, both in my car and in my body. I pulled off the interstate into one of those all-night gas stations just outside of town. The kind with buzzing lights, faded signs, and a parking lot big enough to feel unsafe if you stayed in it too long. I filled up quickly, then decided to grab something cold to drink before the last leg home. The front door gave that tired, electronic chime as I stepped inside. The air conditioning blasted me, carrying the faint smell of old coffee and cleaning chemicals. There was no one behind the counter, but I could hear the faint hum of a TV coming from the back office. I made my way to the cooler aisle, pulling open the glass door to grab a soda. That's when I noticed her. At the far end of the aisle stood a woman. She was barefoot, wearing a thin white nightgown that looked damp. Her hair hung long and dark over her shoulders, strands sticking to her face as if she'd been caught in the rain. She was facing the coolers, her head tilted slightly, not browsing, not moving, just staring at the glass. I froze. The cold from the open cooler door seemed to sink into my bones. Something about her posture didn't sit right. Too stiff, too deliberate. It didn't feel like I'd just walked in on another late-night customer. She must have heard me. Slowly, she turned her head toward me. Her skin was pale, unnaturally pale, and her eyes didn't look alive. They were cloudy, unfocused, like she was looking through me instead of at me. I forced a quick, awkward smile and stepped back, pretending to be more interested in the soda labels. From the corner of my vision, I could see she hadn't moved. She was still turned toward me, watching. The glass door slipped from my hand and shut with a soft thump. That sound seemed to break something in the silence. She began walking toward me. Slow, unsteady steps, her bare feet making the faintest slapping noise against the tile. I backed up down the aisle, heart hammering. My mind was screaming, "Say something," but the words wouldn't come. When she was only a few feet away, she stopped. Her head tilted further, almost unnaturally far to the side. Her mouth opened slowly, as if she was about to speak. But instead, a single drop of water rolled down her cheek and fell to the floor between us. I turned and walked fast toward the counter. There was still no cashier, no one. I looked toward the office door, shut. The TV inside was still murmuring faintly, but no voices answered when I called out. When I glanced back toward the coolers, the aisle was empty. The woman was gone. I didn't wait around. I tossed my soda on the counter, mumbled to no one in particular that I'd pay next time, and walked quickly out the door. The moment I hit the parking lot, the air felt thick and heavy. I scanned every direction, looking for her. The lot was empty except for my car. Still, I unlocked it, slid in, and locked the doors instantly. That's when I saw it. In my side mirror, there was movement by the ice freezer near the front door. Just for a moment, a flash of white, the edge of a nightgown disappearing around the corner of the building. I didn't stick around to check. I floored it out of the lot, my headlights sweeping over the far side of the gas station as I turned. No one was there. The next morning, I told a friend about what I saw. She got quiet, then said, "You know about the girl, right? Apparently, years ago, a woman had been found dead behind that same gas station. Some said she'd been wandering barefoot along the highway in the rain before ducking inside. Others said she'd never made it inside at all. Now, they say she still shows up from time to time, standing in the coolers, watching, waiting for someone to speak first. There's something deeply wrong about seeing someone where they shouldn't be, especially when they're watching you and no one else seems to notice. Maybe she's trapped in that moment. Maybe she's waiting for someone to speak to her. Either way, the next one will make you think twice before ever sitting down at a gas station diner." Story 3. The Man in the Back Booth. It was the winter of 2013, around 3:15 in the morning. I was making a long drive from Oklahoma City to Amarillo for a family emergency. The roads were empty, the radio barely coming through over static, and my eyelids were starting to feel dangerously heavy. When I spotted a lone gas station glowing at the edge of the highway, I decided to pull in before I fell asleep at the wheel. It was one of those combination gas station diners, 2 fuel pumps out front, convenience store in the middle, and a tiny 24-hour cafe tucked along the side. The neon sign buzzed as I stepped inside, the smell of stale coffee and frying oil hitting me all at once. I grabbed a cup of coffee and a snack, but my stomach was growling. The diner section had only one waitress working, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a voice like gravel. She told me to sit anywhere. I picked a booth by the window, the kind where you can watch your car under the canopy while you eat. That's when I noticed him. In the very last booth in the corner, partially hidden by shadows, sat a man. He was slouched low, wearing an old brown jacket and a baseball cap pulled down over his face. From where I sat, I could only see part of his chin and the way his hands rested flat on the table. The oddest part? He had no food, no drink, no menu in front of him. Just sitting there, unmoving. I figured maybe he was homeless or just resting. Didn't think much of it until the waitress came over to take my order. I asked, casually, "Does that guy in the back come in here a lot?" She frowned. "What guy?" I tilted my head toward the booth, the one in the back corner, brown jacket. But when I looked again, the booth was empty. The waitress glanced over her shoulder and shrugged. "You've been on the road a while, huh? Maybe you're seeing shadows." She poured my coffee and walked away. I tried to laugh it off, but I couldn't shake the image of that man's stillness. The way he'd been facing just enough in my direction that I could feel his presence. Halfway through my sandwich, I saw movement in my peripheral vision. I looked up. There he was again. Same booth, same posture, hands flat on the table. Only this time his head was tilted up just enough that I could see his mouth. He was smiling. Not wide, but in this slow, deliberate way, like he knew something I didn't. I froze, coffee halfway to my lips. He didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at me from across the diner with that thin smile. I tried to flag the waitress over. By the time she turned around, the booth was empty again. Something in me said it was time to go. I left money on the table and headed for the convenience store side to pay for my gas. As I walked past the window, I glanced outside at my car. There he was, standing beside my car door. I stopped dead in my tracks, the hairs on my arms rising. His face was shadowed under the brim of his cap, but I could see that smile again. He didn't move toward me, didn't speak, just stood there, one hand resting lightly on my car handle. I backed away from the window and told the cashier, "There's a man out there by my car." The cashier gave me a puzzled look, then walked around the counter to check. When he pushed open the door and stepped outside, the lot was empty. No man. No footprints in the fresh dusting of snow that had fallen earlier that night. I hurried out, jumped into my car, and started the engine. The drive back to the highway felt longer than it should have. Every shadow on the road's shoulder felt like it was leaning toward me. 2 weeks later, I mentioned it to a friend who used to drive that same route. He went pale. "You stopped at that old gas station diner, didn't you?" I nodded. He told me the story. Years ago, a man was killed in that very parking lot during a late-night robbery, shot before he could even open his car door. The killer was never caught, and people say that if you stop there during the late-night hours, sometimes you'll see him, sitting in the back booth or standing by your car, like he's still waiting for the chance to get inside. 3 stops, 3 reminders that gas stations aren't just for fuel and snacks. They're liminal places, half in the safety of light, half in the pull of the dark. Maybe that's why so many strange things happen there. So the next time you roll into an empty station after midnight, keep your eyes open, fill your tank fast, and whatever you do, don't look too long at the people who look too long at you.